this coaching staff if you have players in the right position, but you just don't make you don't make enough big plays?
Well, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to, show players where they're capable of making those plays. Or we've seen you do this before. We need it to happen, or we've seen you do it through practice week in and week out. We've got to be able to produce it when we have to during the games. In the end, there's players see that and recognize it, that hey, this is something I'm capable of doing, or it isn't, and they're usually quick to acknowledge that, yeah, you're right, I can do that, when they see it.
There are some people with this thinking, they're saying that, well, if Sam's healthy this week, don't play him, same for Texas.
Well, I don't. Sam's going to be here, so he can visit with you on his feelings about everything. But in the end, I think it gets down to how comfortable is he. If he's healthy and feels good and can make the throws and is ready to play, he is part of the decision. And if he wants to play and feels that he's capable and effectively and in the way he needs to play, then that's a decision all of us will make. And in the end, it's just too early to know that.
Can you put your finger on maybe the reason of the slow development of some of your younger receivers? Is it you didn't evaluate them right in recruiting, they're not mature yet, or they just need time?
Dave, it could be any of those. And in the end, meaning I don't know that ever, and I'm not talking about these guys specifically, but I think a lot of times through services and what's written about and talked about recruits is unfair. Well, maybe it isn't unfair. Maybe some of them are asking for it, but some of them aren't. And sometimes guys are a little bit overplayed. Sometimes their work ethic to a certain point hasn't been what it needs to be to develop in the ways they need to develop. Sometimes just their understanding and accountability on the field to know what they need to do and to do it 100% isn't always there. And sometimes it is just maturity, and then all of a sudden they do understand what it means to work, what it means to be accountable and play the way you need to play, and sometimes a switch goes on, and I've seen that over and over. So, it's probably a combination of everything.
Is there a lack of players chewing the, come on, guys, get your butt in gear and all that stuff?
There's plenty of leadership. In the end, it's still that. Guys have to be able to produce it and compete when, without someone, whether someone yells at them or not isn't going to make them compete or not. Either guys do or they don't. And prepare to compete. I think there's a certain way you prepare during the week and weeks leading up to games that show that you're a guy that we can count on to go in and make plays.
Does Madu replace Broyles?
Right now, yes. He's working in there.
Bob, in these situations, this question's always asked, but you really have to ask it. Texas is the following week. Your guys are probably down from a very depressing type loss. What type of challenge is it getting ready for a Baylor team that everyone thinks you're going to go beat?
I don't believe me. Baylor can't wait to play us. I realize that, and we understand that, and our guys know that we have got to make improvement. We're just coming off a loss to Miami that we've got to be a much better team this week. And we are very aware of the quality of team Baylor is from watching them. They're 3-1, got a better record than we do, and have played a fairly tough schedule when you look at their early games.
With the encouraging news about Ryan, is there any chance he could play at Texas?
There's probably a chance. To say what kind of one, I don't know.
2 to 4 weeks. So.
That's what they're saying, 2 to 4 weeks, and
when did that happen?
Second play of the game, when he catches the long 40, whatever, when he catches the play action pass, the second play of the game, and goes down to about midfield.
He stayed in the game.
He played a little bit more, not knowing. He thought, he just banged it up. But then the more he started to realize that something was a little bit more wrong, and then they went to the trainer, and that's when they discovered it.
Did you scrap any packages or play groupings that you went away from when he left the game? Or
Well, not really. I mean, we still try and run the same things, but obviously he's a pretty special player, and so it's not easy. It's not easy to replace it. Sometimes to be in the same mode when a certain guy is used to doing certain things makes it tougher.
When you say that Sam is part of the decision on when he'll come back, is he most of the decision? Is it a place where it's like, yeah, I can go, let's go?
Sure, because he's the only one that truly knows, and Sam's a smart guy. If he's not going to play effectively, in other words, be able to sling it out there in a split second when he sees something pop open, then he understands that maybe he isn't benefiting the team, and he knows Landry has played well. So in the end, he has to gauge how confident he is in making the throws and working the offense. And truly, he's the only one that knows how he feels.
So are you waiting to see something from Sam?
Well, we're waiting to see him practice, sure. We can evaluate that much too. But also, he has input on, whether it's, whether there's pain or not, or whether he is able to throw it in a split second where he needs to go with it.
Wants to play, you ever get concerned that he's trying to be maybe a tough guy and he's not ready?
Well, we'll talk to him. We've talked to him about that. That he, it's more about your long range health, and even through this year, your long range health. That it's, and he understands too that I think Landry has been more than adequate. Landry has been good. So it isn't like we're sitting here walling around, can't get the ball snapped. He's got to come back and save the day. I think. In the end, I think he's very aware that hasn't been the case.
Bob, you talked about recruiting services sometimes overhyping players. Do you think there's any chance that the media and maybe you guys even looked at your club and maybe thought that you're better than you are? Or I know you've had the injuries, but do people expect too much?
No, I don't think so. I think it's fair to say. I mean, you have. No, we should be expected to do well. But in the end, we've had a couple of tough, tight games, man. We have dealt with some different circumstances that are, it's tough when you lose two of the top 10 players in the country, or arguably, that are a major part of what you do. I mean, you look at what Jermaine does in red zone scoring and third down pickups, and there's no denying it. That was a major blow.
Is it fair to say that his departure was every bit as a negative impact as even Sam?
Well, I don't think there's any question. His presence is huge. I mean, is every bit as bothersome and problematic as Sam's, definitely.
I think the perception is because you guys don't huddle, that you're an up-tempo offense, that you're always going fast. Is that... You still feel like the no huddle is working like you want it to, or is it not supposed to be?
Just like last year, and you go back and read my comments, the no huddle has nothing to do with the productivity last year as did the execution in the play, and it's the same thing this year.
Do you think there's some validity when people say one staff can outcoach another one, or do you think that's just us making a big deal? Or can it happen?
Again, I don't much care, one staff can outcoach another or not. If that's the case, we've outcoached some people, whatever games we've won, and not outcoached them those other games. So that's, if it's fair in one game, it's probably fair in the other 120, 30 you've played in. So I don't get into any of that. So
you can see why, if you say you outcoach somebody in some game, that people might be critical of someone on your staff in one game. Not saying he's a terrible coach.
Again, I don't get into any of that. To me, it's nonsense. In the end, everybody has a track record, and we don't. It isn't everyone. We've just coached one game or two games, and you get to decide. Everybody's coached a lot of games, and so you can judge them how you want, and in the end, everybody can. It's real simple to make calls on Monday after the game, and you can change them.